Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Opinion Machine, the show where we talk about all things gaming. My name is Killjoy, and today I want to talk about Splinter Cell Conviction. You're probably thinking, like, this is a bit random, you know, just conviction out of nowhere, but if you don't know, I'm a big fan of the Splinter Cell games. It's one of the few franchises that Ubisoft has put out, that I've really enjoyed. I've never necessarily been always good at them, but I've always enjoyed them. Blacklist is probably my favourite one. And I know that was the last one to be released, but I like all the Splinter Cell games. I think Splinter Cell is a lot of fun. But Conviction specifically is an interesting game in the franchise. So the cool thing about all the Splinter Cell games is they all do follow on from one another. Double Agent, Conviction are probably the most linked, even though their gameplay is kind of different. But Conviction is a game that is, I think, not looked back on. It's probably considered one of the weaker Splinter Cells, if not the worst one, for a couple of reasons. It's very... this game basically, because of the setting and the way that it works, the game is very much more about you killing people than having the option to knock them out or not get spotted at all. You can still choose to get past a lot of enemies, but there are sections of this game that are a lot more like, hey, you need to murder all of these bad guys. And the game introduced the mark and execute thing, where if you take someone down with close combat, you can get up to, I think you might be get more than 3, but for the most part 2 to 3 marks on targets. When they're in range, you hit a button and it goes bam bam bam, takes it down. So what this game essentially did was was dumb down some of the stealth mechanics and made more of the shooting, like, you know, Sam Fisher's more of a killer this time. Now, replaying this game, I can definitely see why people have issues with it, because quite frankly it is just a case of, hey, like, you know, this feels like Splinter Cell Light is a good way of describing it. Because in the original games, and especially the first two, you have all the gadgets, you have, you know, your pistol. I can't remember if you get the machine gun in the first one, but you're very limited in what you have, because the whole point is you're meant to go in, get out without being unnoticed. And the first 3 games specifically, and even, I guess even Double Agent as well, they have all those mechanics, like the leg jumping up the walls, you know, hiding bodies, not setting off alarms, because that's the thing with Splinter Cell. As soon as you set off the alarm in the first 2 games, 3 alarms and that's it, it's game over. So that's what made those games really good stealth games, it was all about trying to be a spy. You know, you're not meant to have head-on fights, you're not meant to alert people or set the alarms off. It's all about using the gadgets, knocking people out and getting intel and things like that out of it. And after Double Agent, because Double Agent was very much like, it introduced this mechanic of doing things that Sam Fisher wouldn't do, and also, you know, some Splinter Cell mechanics. So it started to change then. But what Conviction essentially did was make, you're now out of the game, Sam Fisher's out of the game, so to keep it in theme, you're a lot more brutal and violent, and you're not willing to, like, spare people. And they do that with the mechanics as well. So having this stealth light approach, where, like, you can still stealth, because when you're in full darkness, the game is black and white essentially, and you're unseen unless you have light shone on you, which I can see was an interesting choice, and I can see why it was a turn off for some people, because it represents you being in the shadows, but you don't see any colour in the game, or you see very little colour in the game. And on top of that, again, the game introduced mark and execute and a lot of killing. So the reason why I'm sort of just discussing this is because I recently replayed through it, and I actually really like Conviction. From a story standpoint, I think Conviction's got a really good story. It is a short game, and it's probably the shortest, I say Metal Gear then, Splinter Cell game. And, you know, it's told through one of the other characters who's basically explaining, like, why Sam and, like, what happened to him and what he's doing and all of his story and stuff. And you get to see that the voice acting's very good in this game. Michael Ironside did the voice acting for Sam Fisher and did a really good job. And you've also got, I always forget his name, but the guy that played Adam Jensen also plays Andre Coben here, is one of the main villains. And the game has a lot to like about it. I also think it's a good starting point for people new to Splinter Cell, because it is a bit on the easier side in terms of how to deal with the game, because you can do a lot more shooting and silent takedowns and stuff like that. The game is a lot more forgiving, and to be honest, they improved a lot of this with Blacklist by going back to, like, more traditional, keeping this style, but also going back to more traditional stuff as well. But on replaying it, even there's a co-op mode in this game, which is a lot of fun, but you can play it single player as well, and it's like a hunt. It's called like hunting. You can do like a last stand style mission where you defend something, and you can also do like a hunting style mission where you go from area to area to kill enemies. And if you do it stealthy, you have to deal with 10 enemies, and then if you don't and you set the alarm off, you've got to deal with like another 10 enemies or reinforcements that turn up. And upon replaying this game, like I've played it on 360, I've played it on PC, like there is a lot to like about this game. I do think it is a solid entry in the franchise. I also see why people have had issues with Conviction being the way it is, because it doesn't feel particularly stealthy. The game's more like it's a shooter with stealth elements rather than a stealth game. And I think that's why they had a better balance when they did Blacklist, when they listened to feedback and were like, okay, we need to make it so that people can dodge enemies, kill enemies, take them down silently, knock them out. Because this game takes away knocking. Well, when you attack somebody close range, I'm assuming he kills them every time, but it's a really interesting choice, and I think this game's it must have been very much of the time, because it's again very. I mean, the game's always been third person, but this is very much cover to cover to cover. It's got a lot more of that rather than sitting in the shadows or hanging from the ceiling. You're diving from cover to cover, and it became much more of a cover shooter, I guess, than it did with the other parts of what made Splinter Cell good. And especially when in the older games you do spend a lot of time travelling along pipes or up in the walls and stuff. Because the thing is, when you kill somebody in Splinter Cell in the old games, you can pick up their body, you can move their body, you can hide their body, and a lot of the time you have to get forced to do these sort of things. Whereas in this particular game, it doesn't give a toss. Like, you kill someone, if you do it in the shadows, they're likely not going to be found, and it makes for an interesting action game more than it does like playing like a regular Splinter Cell. Now, Chaos Theory I absolutely loved. I have played every Splinter Cell game, and Chaos Theory was the one that I liked the most. I think it had the most. It was just a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that game. Double Agent, I played the Wii version before I played the 360 version, and I like there's like good ideas in there, but that game is not particularly memorable to me. And then Conviction and Blacklist were the ones that I was like, okay, cool, these are really interesting. And I'm probably in the minority when I say that I really like Conviction. I do think it is a lot of fun. And I would say to anybody who's interested in Splinter Cell, if you've never played it before, like I think almost working backwards. So if you play Conviction or Blacklist first, or play Conviction and then Blacklist, that's a good way to do it. And then go back and play the first one, the second one, the third one, and the fourth one. Just so you kind of get like a hang for like how the games are kind of what they're going for. The reason I guess I'm just making this video because I just wanted to talk about Splinter Cell Conviction, and just like I really enjoyed it. I'm thinking maybe I might just stream the game soon. Hopefully you're seeing gameplay on the screen, probably of the multiplayer, the side story mode, because it's just easier to do. But honestly, I think there's a lot to like it. In some aspects, the game it was always too short when it came out. The co-op mode's fun, but again, there's not enough missions. Like, this was a game. If this game came out now, it'd be ripe for adding more and more co-op missions, new areas, stuff like that. Like, when it came out, for what the price would have been, which would have been about 50 quid in the UK, that's, it's not the longest game. And Splinter Cell is one of the few franchises as well where I like to play the games on hard after I've beaten them. Just to test myself, because I love the stealth element, and you can still just be stealthy. This game can make you very confident in that, like trying to be stealthy, but it's so odd. Conviction is such an odd Splinter Cell game, because the first four have very similar mechanics and play very similar, even if they add stuff in. Conviction is a big change to the franchise, and then Blacklist kind of like does a hybrid of everything. It's very interesting. But yeah, I just think this game probably deserves, for people that have never played it, like, go back and play it and see what you think. Like, I think people will have a better idea as to why they don't like it. I do think it's that not as stealthy, more action paced, but the story really is awesome, and I like the way the story is told, and it really sets up, if you have played Double Agent, it is a direct sequel, and it's really cool to like see, how that unfolds and what goes on in the game. And just see, because with Conviction, I mean, it definitely ends a bit abruptly, but Conviction, they could have ended it and just been like, we're done with the franchise, because of the way that it ends and what happens with Sam Fisher. And then they obviously bring him back for the for Blacklist, and that game itself is also incredibly great. But yeah, I don't know. Like this is a weird video. I just kind of wanted to talk about Splinter Cell Conviction. If you've never played a Splinter Cell game, I would actually recommend starting with this if you want a bit one that's on the easier side. This or Blacklist, and then go back and play the first 4. It's definitely not the best Splinter Cell, but it is a lot of fun. And the voice lines are also very, very funny in it. There's a lot of good voice lines from Sam in the main game, and there's a lot of funny voice lines from the enemies. You know, there are issues with the games, like I said, it's a bit short and whatnot, but I'm just repeating points at this point. So, you know, thank you very much for watching this odd, like, video. I don't know, I just really wanted to talk about Splinter Cell Conviction. So, if you like content like this and you want me to talk about just random games, you know, that I've recently played that aren't new. I mean, that game's from like 2010, I think. You know, hit like, hit subscribe if you want to see more of this. Links for Facebook and Twitter will be down below in the description as always. And until next video, I will see you then.